Hey, everybody, good afternoon. So, here's what I want to explore with you today. There is this idea out there that probably many of you have been exposed to that's very popular, especially among entrepreneurs and coaches and what I would call a more new age kind of spirituality. And it's this notion that we create our own reality, that achieving your goals, building the life you dream about is just about envisioning it and then making it happen and remaining always in this positive, grateful, energized state at all times. Now, I admit I do some of this visualization and gratitude work myself, although I don't do it during my daily practice of centering prayer and meditation because that's a totally different kind of interior disposition that I'm cultivating during that. Now, we've got this kind of teaching on the one hand, but on the other hand, if you go deep into any contemplative or mystical tradition, or even if you've just been led into some of these practices, which happens naturally to a lot of people actually, there's a point at which you're going to be called to let go and surrender your individual will to something beyond yourself. At some point, you have got to reckon with your own kind of attachments and wanting and needing things to have things turn out on my terms or your way or my way. And this addiction to my way becomes an kind of an ultimate obstacle to spiritual growth at a certain point. I see so many people in the kind of personal development and coaching space that get stuck at this point. And I even admit to being stuck there myself for quite some time and even will kind of fall back into it every once in a while, which is why the beauty of having the daily practice is there to kind of re-center and ground me. So what I want to kind of think through with you here is like, how do you reconcile these conflicting views, both of which claim to be spiritual and actually both of which I think have a truth in them? So let's explore this from a couple different traditions. In the Christian tradition, we often talk about this deeper call as a dying to self so that Christ or the Christ consciousness can live in and through us. And we do this through spiritual practices that help us cultivate this kind of inner detachment. We can look at it through the lens of a 12-step spirituality. The third step emphasizes seeking only the knowledge of God's will for our lives and the courage to carry it out. So there's a kind of self-surrender that happens in the process of addiction and recovery. And in the Buddhist tradition and in yoga practices as well, craving and attachment are the cause of all forms of suffering. So liberation from suffering and deep peace comes from letting go of our attachments. For those of us seeking to live as contemplatives and leaders in the world today, whether that's in business or in an organization where you lead, how do we reconcile these two conflicting images of what counts as success? I was listening recently to some work by Carolyn Meese, and she points out that we are living through the first period of human history where there are people like us. And here's what I mean by people like us. People who are busy professionals with careers, with families, with mortgages and bills to pay and all of that kind of stuff, who are at the same time attempting to integrate a contemplative practice and this interior disposition of detachment into our lives. Now, this is a massive undertaking, and it's never been done before. In the old days, if you wanted deep union with God and you had that kind of calling, you gave everything up. You became celibate. You didn't have a family. You didn't have a career, and you entered a monastery. And everything was. So let's just savor the richness of what we're trying are in our Facebook group or online. Then you are a part of a group of spiritual pioneers trying to work out an important new way of being in the world, of human consciousness, amid the struggles of your daily lives. And I just want to appreciate that for a moment, like honor the courage that you have in taking this on and just take a minute and, cherish it and ask yourself, is this possible? Do you think you can do it? Or maybe another way to think about it is this something we can do through that process of like visualization and positive thinking? Now, the reality is that there's a grain of truth in this more new age idea of creating your own reality. I believe in something like a natural law that follows something like karma, and this idea that your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions have an energy and they will attract similar energies to you. I think this is part of the natural law law or the law of attraction, which is really popular right now. And like I said before, I practice some visualizations and gratitude for what is on its way to me, but I'm very careful that that is not the practice I do when I'm entering into a deep, silent, contemplative practice, which for me is centering prayer and meditation, because that is a different kind of sacred time. Now, you can get pretty far with the kind of visualization gratitude approach, but here's the deeper, more important truth that the self-help gurus aren't going to tell you, and that you may not even really like me when I say it to you. But if you are truly committed to pursuing a contemplative path, at some point you are going to be called to face whatever you want to call it, your ego, your shadow side, your selfish desires, your own kind of limited desires and attachments. So the problem that comes up at some point with the idea that we just have to kind of visualize it and stay positive is that that can actually push us to kind of double down on our egos and our smaller attachments, and that can keep us stuck. In fact, it will, if you're in this kind of spiritual place, as a leader, it will create tremendous frustration for you, because it's essentially you're doubling down to hold on to that same old way that's actually blocking the next stage of your growth and evolution, both spiritually and professionally. And it may very well be that God is calling you into something deeper and more transformational. Those who make it to this point are being called into a deeper kind of surrender and faith. It's what St. John of the Cross calls a dark faith. It's the dark night of the soul. And it's dark because you can't see exactly where to go next, when you don't know what the final outcome is going to be, because you're kind of surrounded in this unknowing. And that is when you know you're being called into the contemplative path of transformation as a leader. For those who experience this call, and it's usually preceded by a lot of stress and anxiety and frustration, the modern contemplative path is not to give everything up and leave your family and become celibate and leave your job and go join a monastery. No, in fact, I think the call today is actually harder and requires more courage. You are being asked to continue to use all of the skills and the knowledge and the experience, the resources that you've accumulated in this life as a busy professional, and surrender it to a will that is so much larger and expansive and powerful and more loving than you can possibly imagine. This higher divine will always desires the best possible outcome for you, as well as for your business or your organization, the people that you love and that you lead, and your community. But it will not allow you to grow into the next phase of your leadership while still hanging on to those old habits or a more narrow vision and your attachments, and to having to or needing to have success on my terms, on your own terms. So you might be wondering at this point, am I on this stage of growth? And honestly, I don't know. I talk with people every day on these breakthrough sessions, and my primary goal on these calls is to help you and I get total clarity on your current challenges, where you're being led to grow next, and to come up with a plan to get you there. For some people, they're not at this point, and I can't really help them. And for those folks, if that's you, I try to send you to resources that I think will be most helpful, even if those aren't my resources. For others, it becomes really clear that they are right on the edge of this deeper letting go and surrendering to something bigger than themselves as a leader. And even among those, once we get that clarity, some people are ready to take action and make that leap of faith and investment in themselves, and some of them aren't. And honestly, this is where I have to practice surrendering and letting go in my own work as a coach, because of course I want everybody to take that leap and to have that transformation. But I have to surrender that I don't know your contract with God and where you're being led. So, you might be at this stage of struggling between pushing harder to be successful while also feeling this kind of inner disquiet of being called to let go into something much bigger and more purposeful. And sometimes God uses that kind of inner disquiet to get us to start paying attention. So if you're starting to feel that, and you're trying to balance that work of gratitude and abundance that you feel is your birthright, along with this need to kind of practice more letting go and detachment, and without getting kind of stuck in having to have it your way, One way to find out if you're at that point is to go ahead and book your free breakthrough session. I'm putting the link up here as I always do, and you're welcome to click on that now, or you can go straight to thomasjbushlack.com/apply. And most of that call, that session, is just me asking you questions to help you get total clarity on where you're being called to lead at a higher level, guided by divine wisdom and beyond your expectations. And like I said, if I am confident, 100% confident, and only if I'm confident that I can help get you there, then I'll discuss that with you. And if I'm not, I will try to think of other resources to send you towards. So if you're curious about exploring this together, then go ahead and click that link or go to thomasjbushlack.com/apply. Sign up for a time that works for you. Then all you have to do is answer your phone at the time that you choose. And honestly, after that, it's really all guided by grace as we continue our conversation and see where we are being led together. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Look forward to talking with you soon. Again, if you think you might be right at that point of being ready to go deeper, I just invite you and encourage you to click that link right now, and I will talk with you soon. Thanks everybody for watching, and tune back in next time.